So the very first time I read about it, I was kind of skeptical. It just sounded like, why make 2 sticks instead of 1? And I didn't really look into it much more than that. But then ultimately I had an opportunity to meet some of the folks from Arstasis and had the procedure described to me in more detail and looked at the device, and it made a little bit more sense. After those initial descriptions and a decision to give AXERA a try, I had an initial experience with about 20 or 30 devices and was pleasantly surprised. So it is access and it is closure. It's a facilitated manual compression. It's manual compression light, so less pressure and for a shorter period of time with more rapid ambulation subsequently. As far as concerns about AXERA, one is that there are 2 sticks during deployment of the device. And I had some concern about that initially as well. I'd found it not to be an issue. The initial stick is with a small 19-gauge needle. There's no dilation. There's simply a wire, simply the initial wire, 035 wire, is passed through that needle and then is withdrawn after the second plunge, the one that creates the tract through which the sheath is deployed. And usually during my deployment and subsequently of putting in the sheath, I'll retract the sheath a bit, and just moving it around a bit and holding a little bit of pressure is enough to achieve hemostasis in the initial stick site, and it just hasn't been an issue. The other concern is whether or not this is really a dissection, and it's really not. It's a needle tract that's created at a favorable angle. That's really all you're doing. So some of the things that I like about AXERA are the concept, as I mentioned, is a self-sealing arteriotomy that's at a shallow angle that creates essentially a flap or tunnel that's more prone to closure from higher intraluminal pressure, pushing the sides of the flap together and thus sealing it. And the other thing is that nothing is left in the artery, and that's very attractive. I've used all the various closure devices that are out there. I've tried them all and have a pretty good experience with, a large experience with a number of them. And there are a number of them that are effective, but always there's a device, something left, with the exception of one other, which I don't think is as effective, some bit of materials left in the artery or just outside the artery. And that's problematic. And then the other thing that I really like is that the decision to use closure, in this case with AXERA, is made before you do any procedure. So the intervention, the closure intervention, is done as you begin the case. And after that, it doesn't matter what else you do. It's there for you and provides the advantages of that access tunnel, that shallow access tunnel, whether you just do a small diagnostic catheter angiogram or whether you do some sort of intervention. Sure, I had some chest pain and was kind of persistent, and ultimately after going through some other stuff, we decided, my partners encouraged me to have an angiogram, and I ultimately acquiesced. And as I lay on the table and they covered me over, my partner said, "What do you want me to use?" And I said, "Give me an AXERA." I didn't hesitate. And again, I really don't, thinking about my own artery and my own inguinal region, I didn't want to have some sort of collagen plug or polyethylene glycol, whatever, down there in that artery or around it. And to me, that was one of the most, and still is one of the most attractive things about this device, is it leaves nothing there. I think the future is great for AXERA. I think that it's a very useful device with a high success rate and high utility. So I really find that it's my go-to, if I'm going to use a closure device for femoral access, it's the device I prefer to use in general.